And he enslaved as much as 500 Tainos and sent them to Spain. He enslaved as much as 500 Tainos and sent them to Spain as a form of punishment. Right? So instead of sending them to jail or creating a jail, he sent them to Spain. And King Ferdinand and Isabella didn't like, and Queen Isabella didn't like what he was doing. So I want you to understand, a lot of times we don't hear the other side of the story. Right? We tend to hear the side of the story of the conquerors, the side of the victors, but we don't hear the side of the story of the losers, the victims. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Now, what I also want to mention to you, not all the Tainos and Kalinagos were against the Spanish. Not all the Mayans were against the Spanish. There were some loyal native Indians. And one of these loyal native Indians was a chief in Hispaniola known as Huaca Ganari. Spelling is up there on the screen. Huaca Ganari, one of the chiefs in Hispaniola who remained loyal to Christopher Columbus and the Spanish. Right? So you see, it is very important when you're doing a topic like this, you do not make generalizations. Right? The spelling is up there on the projector. Huaca Ganari. I don't want you to make generalizations and believe everybody was against the Spanish. Some persons, some indigenous persons, enjoyed, they liked what the Spanish was giving them. Spanish giving them clothes, teaching them about religion, a new religion, teaching them about culture, right? So all these aspects would have appealed to some indigenous people, not all. But the majority of indigenous people despised what the Spanish had done to them. And they were concerned about their decline. Right? They were powerless.
Yes, sir. Before that, King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella was displeased when he sent them back as slaves. Right? So that means they was against slavery.
Yeah, remember I said earlier in the lecture, the crown, the Spanish king and queen, and the Roman Catholic Church did not want slavery in the Caribbean. But colonists used it as an excuse to enslave people. Colonists kept on saying, but these people are cannibals, these people are rebellious, these people are planning protests, so we should enslave them. Right? And they found a good way to do it through the encomienda and repartimiento. By saying, I'm giving you land. But then the Spanish people say, I need people to work the land. So now they say, well, okay, we will give you land, but we will also allot you 5 Indians or 10 Indians to work that land. Right? So I don't know how to answer your question. Right? Any other questions? Everybody okay with this topic? Right? Now, what I want you to bear in mind is that these Indians in the Caribbean had to pay a tribute. You see, like how we have to pay taxes. You see, as we have to pay electricity bill and water bill. These Indians had to pay a tax to the Spanish. They were not accustomed with this. The Tainos had to get, the Tainos every 3 months, Tainos over 14 years, every 3 months, Tainos over 14 years of age had to pay a tribute to the Spanish, like a tax. What was this tribute that they had to pay every 3 months? 25 pounds of cotton, 25 pounds of cotton, or half of ounce of gold. Half of ounce of gold or 25 pounds of cotton. And that's a lot of cotton because you know cotton light. Right? Half an ounce of gold, and it was difficult to get, or 25 pounds of cotton. So I want you to understand that your freedom, your liberty had been taken away. They now had to ensure that they meet this tribute, they meet this requirement of getting this cotton or gold, right? So every taino over 14 years of age had to pay this tax. Now, on Columbus's third voyage, 1498, there was a disturbance in Hispaniola. And this disturbance was led by a chief called Guarionex. The chief in Hispaniola is called Guarionex. They spell it as on the projector, right? The second to last word. And Guarionex is leading this attack on the Spanish because of the cruelty of the Spanish. Let me just enlarge it a bit. Right? Guarionex is a chief leading the attack against Spanish cruelty in Hispaniola. So I want you to understand the resistance that the Spanish put up. I want you to understand too that some people were loyal to the Spanish, some of the Indians were loyal. Some Spanish people defended this cruelty. Some of the Spanish people said it is, we have to enslave these pagans, these heathens. We have to give them culture and religion. Right? So they defended these atrocities. And some of these priests would even use the Bible to justify enslavement of these Indians. So many of the Spanish colonists, their conscience didn't bother them that they were killing Indians or treating Indians bad, because some of the Spanish priests would use the Bible during sermons on Sundays to justify slavery. Some of the Spanish priests also had Indians as slaves. So I want you to understand, it's hard for the Spanish priests who are supposed to protect the Indians and be the voice of the Indians to condemn this killing and this destruction if the Spanish priests also have encomiendas and repartimiento. If they also have land and slaves, it's hard for them to condemn other Spanish colonists. So I want you to understand how difficult it was to protect these Indians. Now, one of the outstanding persons who protected the Indians was who? What?
Bartolomé de las Casas.
Very good. Bartolomé de las Casas, right? Up here on the wall too. Right? Bartolomé could be also spelled, right? M-E-W at the end, right? Some textbooks you will see online, you see Bartolomé, right? It's Bartolomé de las Casas. Suppose he's called Protector of the Indians. He would inform the Spanish king and queen and other officials of the destruction of the Indians. He would also try to encourage other priests to be kind to these Indians. But people would hardly listen to him. Do you know of any other?
Before he was became protector of the Indians, did he or not enslave them or ill-treat them before?
He, to a certain extent, was part of the problem. He was there and he was witnessing this cruelty, but he realized the extent of the destruction and he started to write back. He was more concerned to convert them to Christianity. So he wasn't part of the process where he was enslaving Indians as such. But remember, he was like a voice in the wilderness. People were not taking him on in the Caribbean, and people abroad in Spain were saying that he was exaggerating. Right? So he did, at the early stages, he felt it was normal for everybody to condemn the Indians as being pagans and cannibals and things. But he began to see that these priests and these Spanish colonists were overdoing it and taking advantage of these Indians. Right? So that's a very important point. Any more questions? No, sir. Right. Any more questions? Everybody okay with this? Right? Were there any other priests, Spanish priests, who might have spoken out, who you remembered maybe from CXC days or you came across it in your readings? All they've seen is these Spanish people armed and ready for battle, and then suddenly